Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Mini Trees, the show where I take an in-depth look at subgenres in the metal scene. Today, I'm going to be talking about sludge metal and Ethereal Tomb. Ethereal Tomb are a three-piece street metal band from Toronto, and they've been teasing their third album online and just finished up a short Ontario tour with Bloodwraith in February. If you like that classic sludge metal sound mixed with some crust punk and a wide array of musical influences, Ethereal Tomb is a perfect band for you. And here's her song, When the Rivers Run Dry. For the band only being around since 2021, they already have such an interesting discography. Their self-titled debut album features a lot of fuzzed out guitars and a general doomy vibe to it. Then, they released their second album, When the Rivers Run Dry, in 2023, where they brought in more hardcore elements into their sound. Their 2024 EP, Life Beyond Oppressor's Brutality, features their song Landback Stomp, which has become an anthem for the metal underground. I was able to get an interview with Alexander from Ethereal Tomb, and here's his take on Sludge and where it fits on the family tree.
Where do you think Sludge fits on the big metal family tree? Like, what are some of his influences, some of what it influenced?
Yeah, I think sludge is such an interesting genre because I don't necessarily identify as that. A lot of people tell us that's what we are, and I'm not going to tell them differently. It's such an interesting genre because it, like certain like sludge bands, to me just feel like doom bands, and other bands just feel like hardcore on like 0.75 speed. Crowbar, I think, is the greatest example because I listened to Earth Crisis through my teens, and then someone showed me Crowbar, and I was like, instead of drop D, it's in B standard, you know, and a little slower. And so my friends who were really into Crowbar, I started showing them Earth Crisis, and they're like, oh, this is kind of dope. I would say one of the biggest inspirations for Ethereal Tomb's sound, one overall influence is Grief. That first EP they did, I think it's just self-titled. Some people call it like the Depression EP. The production on that is just awesome. It's the perfect amount of shitty. I use it as a mix reference on every record that I do. But to me, it just feels like a doom band. But I mean, a lot of people consider it to be a sludge band.
Yeah, like for me, I think sludge is like, I mean, there is like a sound to it, but a lot of sludge is kind of like, it's like more of a way of playing it. It's not really like a sound. Like, cause I hear like sludgy elements and some crust punk stuff, and then I hear it in some like just some other stuff where it's just really just super messy and there's like a groove to it, and you could call that sludge, you can call that other stuff, but it is like an interesting gray area when it comes to metal.
Totally. Yeah, like slow parts of like Sex Prisoner, you could be like, oh, that's sludgy, but like you could be like, oh, it's kind of doomy. You know what I mean? It's not like one thing. You didn't say this exactly, but I feel like you're alluding to it, that it's more of like an attitude,
Yeah.
in a way. You know, I've heard the same thing argued many times about different hardcore bands, where there's a lot of them where they just sound like they're a metal band, you know? But because of the ethos that they're doing things and the scene that they come from, they just become a hardcore band, even though they're almost straight up just playing metal music. So I think it's like a very transferable kind of outlook. So.
Yeah, like parts on Best Wishes by Chromag sounds like just thrash metal. The way the band acts, it's like that's what kind of separates them. Sludge in a way where it's like you have to have this one thing, but you could do whatever you want in the sound. But as long as you have this, you're considered a part of it.
I also think the image that these bands, you know, I don't think they got together and say, hey, let's all be a bunch of white dudes with dreadlocks, you know, but like they did. I mean, that's kind of what they were for a number of these bands. And so I think like them unintentionally creating kind of an image beyond the music that might have helped with like this like pseudo genre kind of dilemma that we have.
It's impossible to talk about sludge metal's origins without mentioning the legendary Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath established the dark atmosphere of doom and sludge metal, and without them, there wouldn't be any of this music. Another equally important thing to mention is Side 2 of My War by Black Flag. On the second side of this album, the band really slowed down their songs, which heavily contrasts the faster first half. This album really inspired a number of the legendary Washington State grunge bands like Nirvana, Mudhoney, and countless others. One of these aforementioned Washington State bands influenced by Side 2 of My War were the Melvins. The Melvins started off as a run-of-the-mill hardcore punk band, but after drummer Dale Crover joined the band, they soon started to shift to a heavier and slower sound with influences from Black Flag, Flipper, and Black Sabbath. The Melvins went on to release some legendary proto-sludge albums, including Ozma, Lysol, and Gluey Pork's Treatments. These albums, along with their other pre-Atlantic Records material, built up this proto-sludge sound that was developing in America. This proto-sludge sound developed into actual sludge metal in America in the 1990s. Bands like Buzz Oven, I Hate God, 16, Acid Bath, and Crowbar began to gain traction in the scene where they ostracized themselves from the faster bands by embracing Black Sabbath and an early Melvins influence. These New Orleans bands slowed down their sounds to a crawl with a lot of really messy guitar playing culminating into one huge, dreadful, sludgy sound. Surprisingly, Acid Bath have gained an insane amount of popularity in the past 2 to 3 years, with a lot of people my age boosting them into the metal mainstream. Acid Bath are now headlining huge venues with equally as legendary bands like Voivod opening up for them. However, at the time, these sludge metal bands, with the exception of Crowbar and a few others, had little popularity outside of their local scene. As sludge continued to evolve in the mid-90s and beyond, bands like Dystopia, CF Deprivation, and Grief combined crust punk and sludge together, which ended up in an incredible fusion of the two. Sludge was booming all over the heavy music world at the time, with Church of Misery adopting a Black Sabbath-style doom sound mashed with a lot of psychedelic rock elements, Shroom combining sludge with industrial and experimental elements, and Neurosis pioneering post-metal out of sludge. More recently, bands like Mastodon, Baroness, and the Ocean Collective have been combining sludge elements with more progressive playing. And it feels like a bit of an oxymoron, but it actually works surprisingly well. With so many bands across the heavy music landscape incorporating sludge elements, as well as Acid Bath getting a huge amount of popularity in the past 3 or so years, sludge is in a great place right now, and you don't want to miss out on all the great bands in the scene. Morast from Dusseldorf, Germany, are a sludge metal band that combine death, black, doom, and sludge into one monstrous wall of sound. They recently released their album Fentanyl on Vaughn Records in February of last year, and it's one of the coolest sounding metal albums I've ever heard. Here's their song Of Furor and Ecstasy. Pelican from Illinois are a 4-piece sludgy post-metal band. A lot of their songs are instrumental, and the band actually originated as a side project from the avant-garde grind band Tusk. They have quite an extensive discography for you to sink your teeth into, varying from ambient rock to full-on sludge and doom. Here's the title track of their newest EP, Ascending. Sub Rosa from Utah are a progressive, atmospheric, doomy sludge band. They blend some of the most beautiful and emotional melodies in metal with equally as heavy and emotional guitar riffs. Sub Rosa are a one-of-a-kind band, and it's hard to encapsulate their sound into a couple of sentences. And to show you this, here's their song, The Usher. While sludge has never really been a mainstream genre, the underground metal and punk scenes have been brewing up some incredible sludge bands that you need to check out. Endless Joy from North Tacoma released their self-titled debut album back in October of last year. Their songs range from a bunch of blisteringly fast crust punk to some brutally slowed down and dissonant sludge. If sludgy playing is what you like, definitely give these guys a listen. Dreadspire from Oakland, California are an instrumental sludge two-piece band that you need to give a listen to. And last but not least, Undersmile from Oxford, England are a droney sludge metal band that have been around for a while, but they haven't gotten the recognition that they really deserve. This band is incredible, and you need to give them a listen. Alright, that's all I got for you guys today. I want to know in the comments, what do you guys think about my list, and are there any bands that you think I missed out on, or any bands you'd like to share? And with Acid Bath getting a lot of popularity recently, I want to know, what do you guys think that means for the metal world in the future? With all that said, I'll see you in the next one.